You know, for centuries, we've dreamed of holding back the hands of time. But what used to be myth and magic is, well, it's now on the verge of becoming actual science. We're talking about radical life extension. And today, we're going to explore the incredible promise of this emerging science and some of the really profound questions it's forcing us all to ask.
So let's just start with a huge question. What if living to 160 years old became normal? Expected even. Just think for a second about how that would completely upend everything we understand about life and work and society itself. That's the incredible and, yeah, really complicated future we're diving into.
But how could this even be possible? I mean, really? The answer isn't in curing diseases one by one the way we've always done. It's in a revolutionary new field that targets the aging process itself. So welcome to the new frontier, geroscience.
To really get what geroscience is all about, you have to understand this one crucial idea. Your chronological age, that's just your number of laps around the sun. But your biological age? Oh, that is the real story of what's happening inside you. It's how old your cells actually are. And here's the kicker. Those two numbers can be wildly different.
And that really gets to the core idea of geroscience. See, instead of playing whack-a-mole with individual diseases like cancer or heart disease, what if we could treat the single biggest risk factor for all of them, aging itself? The goal isn't just to add more years to your life, but to add more health to those years, to really extend what we call our health span.
Okay, so if we're going to treat aging, we first have to pop the hood and understand what's actually driving it. We need to look at our body's aging engine, deep down inside our cells, and figure out why it starts to sputter and break down over time.
Well, scientists have identified a bunch of these interconnected processes. They call them the hallmarks of aging that really drive our decline. You could think of them as these tiny compounding failures happening all the time. Our DNA gets damaged, the little protective caps on our chromosomes wear down, and our cells' power plants, the mitochondria, start to malfunction. It's a total system-wide breakdown.
And what's so fascinating is that a lot of these failures seem to trace back to one critical molecule, NAD+. Now think of it like the currency that runs your entire cellular economy. It's the energy that powers all the essential repair and maintenance jobs in your body. And when you run out of it, the whole system just collapses.
So here's the problem. Just by living, breathing, being out in the sun, our DNA is under constant attack. It's accumulating thousands of tiny bits of damage every single day. And fixing all that damage, well, it comes at a very, very high cost.
So how does this chain reaction actually unfold? Well, first, all that DNA damage starts to pile up. That's step one. Next, the cell has to respond, right? So it activates this emergency repair crew called PARPs. Now these PARPs are great, but they are incredibly hungry for NAD+, which brings us to step three. They consume vast amounts of it. And the final result? Our cellular NAD+ levels just plummet.
This is where another key player comes into the story, the sirtuins. These proteins are basically the cell's master regulators. I mean, they're the maintenance crew. They control everything from your metabolism to DNA repair to inflammation. They're absolutely essential for keeping us healthy. But they have a critical weakness. They can only work when there's enough NAD+ available.
And here is the crucial point, the absolute bottom line. Because that PARP repair crew is using up all the NAD+ to fix the daily damage, there's just nothing left for the sirtuins. So the main maintenance crew is forced to shut down. The lights go out. And when your primary defense system goes offline, the entire cell starts to fail, and the aging process kicks into high gear.
But what if this process wasn't a one-way street? What if it wasn't inevitable? The same science that identified the problem is now pointing toward a potential solution. What if we could actually intervene in this cycle and rewind the cellular clock?
And this is where the story takes a really, really exciting turn. What if that steady decline in our NAD+ reserves wasn't inevitable? What if aging wasn't a one-way street after all? Well, it turns out we may have actually found a way to fight back.
This strategy, in concept, is pretty direct. Just give the body the raw materials it needs to make more NAD+. By supplementing with these molecules called NAD+ precursors, and you may have heard of them, NMN and NR are the big ones, we can essentially refuel our cells and help them replenish their depleted NAD+ supplies.
And in animal studies, the results are just remarkable. What happens when you boost NAD+ levels? Those dormant sirtuins, they fire back up, essentially bringing the cellular maintenance crew back online. The effect is that many of the functional declines we just associate with getting old are actually reversed in these models. It's a stunning proof of concept.
But as we stand on this scientific cliff edge, the technical questions start to give way to much bigger, much more difficult ones. The science is optimistic, sure, but the societal implications are incredibly challenging. If we can double the human lifespan, who gets to live that long? Let's just ground this in today's reality for a second. Right now, in the United States, there's already a longevity gap. Working-class Americans can expect to die more than 7 years earlier than the wealthiest among us. That gap already exists, today.
So now ask yourself, what happens when these breakthrough therapies finally arrive, almost certainly with a very high price tag? What does our society even look like when the gap between the rich and the poor isn't just measured in years, but in entire lifetimes?
And here is the heart of the ethical dilemma, captured in this chilling quote from philosopher Michael Blake. The fear is that radical life extension, if it's not distributed equitably, could lead those who have it to see those who don't as not just less fortunate, but as something less human.
Think about what Blake calls narrative similarity. Being 50 years old means something very specific when you expect to live to 80, right? It's the beginning of your later years. But what does it mean to be 50 when you expect to live to 160? You're not even middle-aged. When the fundamental arcs of our lives become that different, how can we possibly relate to one another? This all brings us to a fundamental choice about the kind of future we want to build. A choice that was framed brilliantly over 150 years ago by the novelist Charles Dickens. Will we choose to see each other as Dickens hoped we would, as fellow human beings sharing a common fate, a common mortality? A society built on the idea that, in the end, we are all in this thing together? Or will we let these technologies divide us? Will we create a world where the ultra-long-lived and the normal-lived are no longer on the same journey at all? A world with two fundamentally different kinds of people?
Look, the science is moving faster than any of us can imagine. These breakthroughs are coming, whether we're ready for them or not. Which leaves us with one final, urgent question. As we step into this brave new world, we have to decide, what is our shared humanity worth to us?